Hey there, focus learners, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a really radical, completely paradigm-shifting interpretation of Romans chapter 6 today, one that honestly challenges centuries of religious striving. We're going to be unpacking some fascinating source material from Gospel Reclaimed, which basically deconstructs our traditional views of salvation and presents this highly inclusive theological framework. So if you've ever felt that heavy exhaustion of just trying to measure up, you'll want to stick around. This source material unpacks an entirely different perspective on what it actually means to be in Christ.
So, let me ask you something that really hits home for a lot of us. Is being in Christ essentially an exclusive VIP club? I mean, so many of us are just deeply, deeply exhausted by performance-based religion. You know the drill. We've been taught that salvation operates kind of like a highly restricted guest list. You've got to know the right people, say the exact right words, or behave a certain way just to get past the cosmic bouncer. But the source material asks us to really pause and consider, is this exhausting, endless striving truly what the gospel was meant to be?
And that brings us to section 1, the VIP religion myth, where we start deconstructing all that striving.
Okay, let's dive into this. Historically, various denominations have basically spent centuries adding conditions and literal hoops to jump through to gain access to God. They've debated endlessly about who is in and who is out. The author playfully calls this the salvation menu. It's like every flavor of Christianity adds its own unique toppings to this checklist. For one group, maybe step 1 is walking down the aisle for an altar call. For another, step 2 is a very specific type of baptism. And looming over all of it, right, is step 3, the downright impossible pursuit of moral perfection. I mean, talk about a checklist designed to breed absolute burnout, especially for all the recovering perfectionists out there.
But contrast that exhausting, massive menu with just 3 famous words from Jesus. It is finished. The source text points out something absolutely crucial here. His mission to undo the fall, conquer sin, and restore the cosmos was a completed cosmic reality. There is literally nothing to add to it and nothing to take away. As the author notes, it wasn't, it is started, now you guys finish it. No, it was finished.
Because of that finished work, the author argues we really need to reframe our entire theological paradigm. Just look at the comparison here. The traditional condition-based question we always seem to ask is, how do I get into Christ? But if the work is already finished, the source suggests the real, incredibly liberating question is actually, who was included in him?
To find that answer, let's move into section 2, United in his death, exploring Romans 6, verses 5 through 11.
So, let's read Romans 6, verse 5. For if we have become united with him in the likeness of his death, certainly we shall also be in the likeness of his resurrection. Now, our immediate temptation for sure is to read that word if as a condition. You know, like a switch that's just sitting there waiting to be individually activated by our good behavior.
But here's where it gets fascinating. The source material emphasizes the Greek context behind that word if. It turns out this if is totally rhetorical. It's actually much more accurately translated as since. Paul isn't speculating about some future possibility here. He is declaring an already established reality. Translating this as since completely flips the text. It goes from being a conditional requirement to a rock-solid cosmic guarantee. Since we have become united.
So the crucial takeaway here is that Christ's death was a cosmic, absolutely unconditional act of union. According to this view, God's redemptive plan was established before the world even began. Humanity's inclusion in this death and the subsequent resurrection was decided by God alone. That leaves absolutely no room for exceptions and zero room for exclusions.
Let's keep building on this in section 3, freedom as a reality, an accomplished fact.
You might be wondering, how does this past tense work actually apply to our current everyday struggles? Well, Paul writes in Romans 6:7, for he who has died is freed from sin. Pay close attention to the grammar here. Paul is speaking of the old self being crucified in the past tense. It's an accomplished fact. Actually, it's not a future goal you have to strive for at all. It's a historical reality that you simply look back upon.
And check out the Greek word for freed used here, dikaio. It essentially means justified or declared righteous. So being freed from sin within this theological framework is not about white-knuckling your way to some state of moral perfection. It's entirely about recognizing the status that Christ has already secured on humanity's behalf. According to the text, you aren't constantly striving to become free, you are already declared free.
This, frankly, changes everything.
bringing us right into Section 4. Death is finally defeated, abolished forever.
Romans 6:9 says, "Death no longer is master over him." The logic presented by the author here is incredibly tight, because death utterly lost its grip on Christ at the resurrection, and because humanity was unconditionally included in him. That means death has unconditionally lost its grip on us as well.
I mean, just look at the source's triumphant claims about the current status of death. Dethroned, disarmed, defeated, abolished. The judgment of sin took place at the cross, and the resurrection was heaven's absolute final verdict. The conclusion is both simple and profound. Life wins eternally and irrevocably. No question about it.
Which brings us right to the climax of this whole thing in Section 5. So, who is actually in Christ?
Let's just pause for a second and reconsider everything we might have been taught about that VIP club guest list we talked about earlier. If this union with Christ requires absolutely zero striving, no checklists, and no behavioral hoops to jump through, who actually gets to benefit from this finished work?
The answer provided by the source material is breathtakingly simple. All of humanity. Union with Christ was achieved entirely without human consent, without human effort, and honestly, even without human awareness. It was God's doing, established before the foundation of the world.
And this brilliantly illustrates the point, straight from Paul's letter to the Corinthians: if one died for all, then all died. Again, translating that if as since one died for all died. This grace, this total inclusion, was given to everyone before history even began to unfold.
Okay, so what do we do with this on a practical level? Let's move to Section 6, Practical Theology, waking up to this in our daily life.
How should someone actually live Tuesday to Tuesday if they are already included in this massive, finished reality? Well, Romans 6:11 gives us the answer. Even so, consider yourselves to be dead to sin, but alive to God in Christ Jesus. The author makes a brilliant point here. Paul isn't giving us some sort of motivational fluff. He isn't saying, fake it till you make it, right? He's telling his readers to just do the math. To consider or reckon means to count something as true because it is mathematically, historically, factual. The source suggests you are to reckon your finished co-crucifixion as true simply because it is.
And here is the absolute core of the author's practical theology for today. They urge readers to wake up to it, walk in it, and live from it. The absolute beauty of this framework is that it doesn't demand a behavioral response to make it true. It simply calls believers to open their eyes and accept what already is. According to this view, faith isn't the currency that buys your ticket. Faith is just the lens that lets you see you were already on the guest list the whole time.
So we'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. Are you exhausted from striving for a salvation that is literally already yours? If this framework holds true, the author suggests you can finally put down the checklist, step out of that exhausting performance-based VIP line, and simply rest in a victory that was secured for you before you were even born. Thanks for joining us for this explainer. Focused learners, keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.